Now, hello everyone, it is Toby from Toby's Urban Sketch. Thank you for joining me for another quick sketching video. Today is all about the watercolours. So we're going to start with just a really loose sketch, and I'm not going to talk over everything today, but I guess I just want to really quickly tell you what I'm trying to achieve today, which is, after what was a really terrible weekend of painting, where I'd been just over painting everything, getting frustrated, a bit upset with myself, these moments we all have, I wanted to really just simplify this. So this is going to be a really loose sketch with the pencil, and then the watercolours in 3 basic layers, just painting some really light washes first, a little bit of tone, followed by some darker lines and high contrast, just to add those finishing touches. But the aim is to be loose, expressive, have fun, and just to realise how good things can look if you don't try too hard. So look, we've done the sketch now, and all I've done in the sketch is some big shapes, capturing those big shapes. And now, time for the watercolour. So my paper's dry, but I'm using lots of water in a big size 2 mop brush here. And you can see it's sort of popping the pigment down, then coming back with a clean brush. And you can move the pigment around, you can blend it and shift it around quite a lot. I'm just trying to almost get that negative space, so paint around all my buildings and then soften a couple of edges here and there. I'm not aiming for anything more than that with our initial sky. I then want to start moving on to some of the colours we see, the background colours, those loose greens surrounding the church, before capturing a few shapes, again painting very much the light, using some nice warm tones to get those shapes, all the buildings, the road and the pavement and things. So one of the things I'm trying to do with these warm colours is grab those big shapes but leave plenty of light. So leave little gaps between the shapes and selectively blend between the shapes. And we're not trying to be neat, we're trying to be simple. I'm leaving sort of these white areas in some of the buildings just for a bit of light. And I'm not trying to make the washes uniform. In fact, I'm trying to make the washes a little bit varied to get that magic you can only really get with watercolours by letting the watercolours decide what they're going to do. We're kind of onto the second layer of watercolours now, and still with a big brush, I'm starting to add some of those slightly darker tones, just beginning to bring out shadows more obviously, beginning to add a bit of shape in a couple of places. Still not using the darkest darks, but certainly we've gone up a notch in our value here, and we're heading towards quite dark colours. It's still important to try and get those bits of negative space. So on the right you can see the building just peeking its head in. You can just about get its shape, but the only reason you can get its shape is because I've painted a negative shape using the shadow on the main building in the image. For me, in watercolours, contrasts are really important. One of the most interesting contrasts in the scene is the background. Those loose greens we've painted in. They're actually sort of high value trees, very deep green, almost black. So what I want to do is use that light, but get a lot of extra value on top of it. We'll have some of that light peeking through in front, behind, little gaps between things, but suddenly by popping in this dense background, do you see how the church and the buildings begin to jump forwards and become a real focal point of the scene, whereas before they were a little bit flat, sort of hiding in the background. We've moved on now to the final segment of the painting, the darkest darks. So I've changed down to a small brush, a size 6 round brush, and I'm mixing up a really dark mix of indigo and quinacridone sienna, and just popping in suggestions of detail. So we're not trying to paint every line, draw every little thing, but just by popping in a few suggestions, these dark bits of contrast, moving around the image, perhaps picking up these dark shadows under the roof line, and then later I'll be adding little frames and things, but not the whole frames, just suggestions of frames. That's how you bring life to these otherwise very loose and abstract shapes and colours. So time to add these people then. I sketched them in very loosely with a pencil earlier. And all I want to do now really is again just loosely define their shapes. They're a tiny bit more than carrot people, but not much more than that. But that's all you need in a sort of loose and expressive scene like this. The basic shapes, little bit of shadow, and you've got a person. And we're right towards the end of the sketch now, and really I'm just moving around, adding little bits of texture in places. And it got me thinking, what could I have done to improve this? And I think one thing which would have made it more interesting perhaps is when I washed the tarmac, the road, adding a few flecks of water onto that might have just lifted it, made it more interesting, added a bit more texture to quite a flat area of the painting. But really I'm quite happy with it. It's a simple painting. It didn't take long, about 25 minutes real time. But it was enjoyable to do, and I quite enjoy the finished piece. Thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed, please do like, subscribe, and it's lovely having people comment as well. Have a good rest of your day.